Day for Africa. We will start very shortly. Before we do, there is some housekeeping information we want to share with all of you. So we have interpretation in English and French. At the bottom of the screen, you will find the button for interpretation. So please, let's take a minute to select the language that you would prefer to hear the sessions. So we have English and French, and we will also have a session of questions and answers for our panelists. So please post your questions in the chat and kindly specify to which panelist your question is addressed. So let's all take a minute just to check that we have selected the right audio channel for your preferred language. So we will start, and I think it's important to mention that the UNDRR Regional Office for Africa, it's very pleased to host this webinar to raise awareness on tsunami hazard and facilitate exchange of experiences on the actions to reduce this hazard in the region. Tsunamis are rare events, but they can be very destructive. So it's very important to continue working together on reducing the risk of coastal communities for tsunami. Allow me to invite Mr. Amjad Abashar, the director of the UNDRR Regional Office for Africa, to give his opening addresses. Mr. Abashar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Diana, very much for your introduction. And I just wanted to welcome all the speakers and the panelists and my colleagues from UNESCO and Indian Ocean Commission and colleagues from Madagascar, Seychelles and Tanzania, European Commission and Seychelles, and I believe also we're having with us the National Office for Risk and Disaster Management, CITRACA from Madagascar. I wanted to, first of all, thank everybody for participating in this, and I hope that we'll be able to learn about a critical hazard that we often don't see very much in Africa, but it has happened in the past. And hopefully we'll be able to learn some lessons, particularly from the island states and the coastal communities who are vulnerable to possible tsunami waves. So this year's World Tsunami Awareness Day coincides with the global COVID-19 crisis, which is claiming many lives and derailing national and local economies, not only in Africa, but across the world. So in addition to COVID-19, many countries in Africa are also experiencing multiple hazards like floods and droughts and locust infestations, particularly here in East Africa. While tsunami risk may be low in Africa, the exposure is growing, and the region can expect huge economic losses if better early warning systems are not put in place, along with more systematic risk assessments and awareness programs to educate communities on disaster risks. It's also important when doing so to address the systemic risk, the accumulating or cascading risk that faulty development often results in. In 2004, the Indian Ocean tsunami killed more than almost 250,000 people, and it caused billions or more than $10 billion of damage, mostly in Asia. But it also affected some of the East African countries such as Somalia, Tanzania, Kenya, and Seychelles, and where they caused significant damage and losses in lives. So the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, which is the global plan to reduce disaster losses by 2030, calls for a substantial increase in the number of national and local disaster risk reduction strategies to be in place by the end of this year. And it also urges all countries to have multi-hazard early warning systems in place by 2030. This is one of the key targets of the 7 targets of the Sendai Framework. In Africa, we've had so far about 19 countries that have validated their disaster risk reduction strategies or policies and aligned them to the Sendai Framework. There's an additional 14 countries who are in progress of developing or validating their strategies. And we look forward to supporting him in those efforts. Now, I'm pleased to say that all of these strategies include early warning considerations. We consider that this is a very good progress in the region, but at the same time, we also must call for more efforts by countries to continue developing their strategies to meet the 2020 target. So UNDRR is working with partners such as the African Union and other sub-regional organizations in Africa to try to support their efforts to develop early warning systems. For example, we recently signed an agreement with the government of Italy to boost disaster risk management in Africa and to strengthen multi-hazard early warning systems across the continent. We'll be working with the African Union Commission to implement a project on multi-hazard early warning in partnership with the African Center for Meteorological Application of Development, ACMAD, the regional economic communities, and a number of member states to help them implement a continental impact-based early warning system at the African Union headquarters. Now, this will be complemented with other similar projects, including a recently funded Swedish project that we're calling the Horn of Africa Partnership for Early Warning and Early Action, which will be conducted in partnership with IGAD and the World Food Programme. And there's also a project on strengthening disaster risk resilience through enhancing coordination mechanisms that is targeting Malawi as well as the Southern African community. And this is also generously funded by ECHO. Now, in February 2020, my office had the pleasure to work with Madagascar's National Office for Risk and Disaster Management to conduct a tsunami awareness training in the city of Taumasina, which is a tsunami risk zone. The training we learned, the training targeted youth, Red Cross volunteers, and village leaders. So there was a drill, a tsunami drill, and evacuation zones identified, and standard operating procedures were developed. And we hope to hear from the BNGRC during today's webinar about this this training and the efforts that Madagascar is taking to address the tsunami risk. So I'll stop here and just, I'm pleased to also have with me, I believe, Mika Odido from the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, coordinator in Africa, and I hope that he will also, Mika will also speak to us more about the tsunami readiness in the region. I thank you very much, and I look forward to our discussions. Over to you, Diana.
Many thanks, Amjad, for these words. Effectively, we are very glad to ask Mr. Mika Odido, the coordinator in Africa for the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, to give his opening remarks. Mr. Odido, the floor is yours.
Is it possible to share the presentation that I provided earlier on? Okay, thank you. I'm going to give a brief overview of the initiatives of IOC of UNESCO on preparing to reduce tsunami risks in the region. I'd really like to thank UNDRR Africa for organizing this session, which provides us with a good platform to exchange ideas on what progress we are making, the challenges and gaps that still exist in developing a functional early warning system. Next, please. Some few words about, next. Okay, some few words about IOC of UNESCO. It's the body of UN system for ocean science, ocean observations, data exchange, services, capacity development, and science to governance work. It has 150 member states and was established in 1960. One of the high-level objectives of the commission is to establish an early warning system. Next, please. We have 6 functions through which we try to achieve the objectives of the commission. 2 of them focus on building scientific knowledge That's ocean research, ocean observations, and data management. 2 of them focus on applying the knowledge for societal benefits. That's early warning systems and services, assessment, information for policy, and 1 of them focuses on improving governance with capacity development as a cross-cutting issue. Next, please. One of our focus, of course, as already indicated, is the early warning system. For the tsunami early warning system, we have 3 pillars. The first pillar focuses on risk assessment, that's systematically collecting data, undertaking risk assessment. The second pillar is on warning system development for hazard detection and for monitoring, and then for communicating the threat information and early warnings. And then the third pillar focuses on preparedness and awareness and mitigation. Next, please. We've had a tsunami early warning for a very long time in the Pacific. That's since 1965, since tsunamis have been a much more common occurrence in that region. In other parts of the world, we did not have a warning system before the Indian Ocean tsunami of 2004. After the Indian Ocean tsunami, the governing bodies of IOC requested the Commission to establish warning systems that will cover the entire globe. Since then, we've worked on a warning system for 3 additional areas. That's the Indian Ocean, the Caribbean, and the Northeast Atlantic and Mediterranean regions. 2 of these warning systems, the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Mediterranean, cover Africa, and I'll briefly give some information on how we progressed with this and what the current situation is. Next, please. For the tsunami of 2004, as already indicated, really devastated the region. More than 230,000 people were killed, including on our coast, quite a significant number, though the tsunami arrived 7 to 8 hours after the earthquake in Indonesia. This, I believe, is not really acceptable, where we have such an early, the information was already all over the media, and we still had so many people killed in our region. So it's really important to ensure that in case such an event ever occurs, we won't have a similar loss of life. Next, please. We've since then established seismic networks and sea level observing stations throughout the Indian Ocean. If you look at the top maps, show the locations of seismic stations and sea level station in 2004. And the bottom map shows what we had by 2017. You can see that there's a significant increase in the number of observing stations, both for seismic and sea level. We've also worked on inundation maps and evacuation maps for the coastal countries. We've worked on training on standard operating procedures. And we've also had regular exercises, the so-called Indian Ocean waves, which we've done every couple of years. The last full-scale exercise was in 2018. This year we had a much scaled down version in October. But in all these instances, we've seen that we have fairly good preparedness. For the wave exercise in 2018, more than 16,000 people evacuated along the Indian Ocean rim. From this region, we had the participation of Kenya, Mozambique, Seychelles, and Mauritius in the tsunami wave exercise. I'd also like to mention that with support from UNDRR, we have a tsunami manual that has now been translated to Kiswahili, which will be very useful to other people coming from this region. Next, please. One area that did not get so much focus when you began the work on the Indian Ocean warning system was the Northwestern Indian Ocean. Though this area also has a fair amount of risks from the Makram zone. So we've now begun working on this area with the countries of the region, trying to establish, strengthen the warning system and the response system for that region. Next, please. The other region which is susceptible to tsunamis is the Mediterranean Sea. We have the Hellenic arc close to the coast of the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea, through where we've had several tsunamis generated over historical times. We've already begun working on developing a warning system for that area. For the first pillar, we've developed a catalog of previous tsunamis. That's the map at the bottom right-hand side. We've worked on a region-wide probabilistic tsunami hazard assessment. That's the map at the top. The dark areas in the Indian Ocean show how the wave would move in case of a tsunami. For the second pillar, we already have 5 accredited tsunami service providers in the area and 10 national tsunami warning centers. Maybe I could also point out that we had a small tsunami in this area last week after the earthquake in Turkey. The tsunami service provider in Turkey was able to predict the travel time for this tsunami, which was generated after the earthquake. And then under pillar 3, we already have we've done 3 national exercises and regional exercises and national exercises in several countries in the region. Next slide. I'd like to conclude by highlighting one of the major programs that IOC is currently working on. We are currently working on developing an implementation plan for the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, which will start on 1st January 2021. One of the outcomes for the decade is a safe ocean where life and livelihoods are protected from ocean-related hazards, such as tsunamis. And we hope that together with other partners in the region, we can work on developing a program for safeguarding the lives of our citizens in this region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Odido, for this overview of the work of IOC in the region. I will invite our next panelist, Mrs. Zoe Trevisan, who is the head of DRR at the Indian Ocean Regional Intervention Platform, PIROA. Mrs. Trevisan will talk about some experiences in education and awareness, both in the school and more broadly at community level, within a regional approach common to all islands of the Indian Ocean region. Mrs. Trevisan, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Bonjour. I will do my presentation in French. Donc, la PIROA, il travaille dans la région de sud-ouest de l'océan Indien en tant que plateforme de réponse régionale à tous les risques. Du coup, on a des projets maintenant liés au risque de tsunami à La Réunion, Seychelles, Maurice et récemment, on vient de commencer un tout nouveau projet à Mayotte, Comores, pour 4 pays de la région. Next slide, please. Alors, notre approche, c'est une approche plutôt multirisque. Du coup, à travers l'éducation et la sensibilisation, avec l'objectif d'éduquer à la culture de risque, on intervient dans les milieux scolaires, dans tous les cycles de milieux scolaires, de toute l'île de la Réunion, et aussi à niveau de grand public. Notamment, on a signé un mémorandum en partenariat avec le rectorat de la Réunion, l'académie, et on a inclus dans les curriculums scolaires l'éducation, réduction des risques de catastrophes, Et on traite les 7 risques présents à La Réunion. Les risques importants sont le risque cyclonique et le risque d'inondation, mais aussi les autres risques, du coup, le tsunami, le risque volcanique, séisme, temporel, mouvement. À niveau de partenaires techniques, pour la rédaction des modules liés au risque tsunami, on s'appuie à l'expertise de Météo France, du ministère de l'aménagement territorial français, et bien sûr des experts pédagogiques du rectorat de l'Académie de la Réunion. Next. Voilà. Comment on sensibilise les jeunes, on éduque les jeunes au risque? Ben voilà, on a développé différents outils de sensibilisation pédagogique. À côté du module dans les classes, on diffuse aussi des messages de prévention à travers des BD, des bandes dessinées. Quoi faire avant, pendant et après un tsunami. Ça, c'est un exemple, avec un petit mascotte pour accompagner les enfants. Next. Voilà. Quelles informations sont présentes à l'intérieur du module d'éducation? Alors, il y a toute petite partie d'introduction, donc la définition. Qu'est-ce que c'est un tsunami? Comment ça manifeste? Les risques précurseurs, les tremblements de terre, la retraite de la mer et des autres signes. Un peu de historique des tsunamis à La Réunion. La Réunion a souffert 9 tsunamis entre 1883 et 2015, parce qu'on sait bien qu'on tend à perdre la mémoire de risque si ce risque n'est pas vécu. Du coup, tsunami, voilà, si tu demandes à les Réunionnais, ils ne se rappellent pas. On n'a jamais eu de tsunami à La Réunion, mais c'est pas ça. Du coup, on fait un petit historique. Les mesures pour faire face au risque, du coup, le Deadly Warning System, notamment la surveillance des tsunamis. Comment ça marche? Pas seulement dans la région, mais aussi dans le monde. Et comment agir? Du coup, comme je viens de dire, quoi faire avant, pendant, après. Et ensuite, il y a des exercices pratiques sur la connaissance apprise. Next. Okay. On a aussi développé des jeux à faire en classe ou en famille. Par exemple, la maquette de tsunami que vous voyez dans cette image. Next. Et pour les activités grand public, on a 2 différents jeux. Un jeu des questions-réponses, voilà, avec des cartes, et différents goodies. Et surtout avec l'approche multiliste. Next. Voilà, ça c'est un exemple. Et du coup, comme je viens de dire, la PIWA a une vocation régionale et c'est pour ça que le projet Paris pas Paris, qui est développé depuis 10 ans à La Réunion, il a aussi un rayonnement régional dans tous les pays dans lesquels on a des projets, Maurice, Seychelles, Mayotte, Comores. On développe des projets jumeaux avec la même méthodologie. Donc, on essaie de développer des partenariats avec les autorités techniques compétentes de la gestion des risques et catastrophes, les ministères de l'éducation, et ensuite, on collabore à la création des outils pédagogiques pour arriver à sensibiliser les enfants, les jeunes, qui seront les citoyens de demain, et développer une culture de risque au sein de toutes les communautés. À niveau régional, on a aussi les mêmes outils et chaque pays il sélectionne les risques les plus présents et développe des outils spécifiques et des autres projets en parallèle. Voilà. Next. Et merci à vous. Si vous avez des questions, tout de suite.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Trevisan. Many thanks, Mrs. Trevisan, for sharing these experiences, very practical from the field on tsunami preparedness. Our next panelist is Mrs. Gina Bon, that will share with us some reflections and activities promoting tsunami risk reduction in the countries that are being part of the Indian Ocean Commission. Mrs. Bond, many thanks. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. My presentation will be basically, I'll give an overview of some of the reflection around the tsunami and disaster risk reduction, where we are right now in terms of as a region, and what we think the region would need to do to ensure that we continue to remain safe. Just for those who are not familiar with the Indian Ocean Commission, we are a regional intergovernmental organization, and we are based in Mauritius. We work mainly with the island states. This is Mauritius, Seychelles, Madagascar, Comoros, Reunion Islands. And in some of our activities as well, we do work with the island of Zanzibar. And in the field of disaster risk reduction, we are very happy that we had the opportunity as well to work with Zanzibar through one of the projects that we were running for a couple of years, for 7 years in the region, the Islands Project. And we were also having some support from the UNDRR at that time. So next slide, please. Just to give an indication, for us, it is as a regional organization working with island states, we feel that tsunami and disaster risk reduction is a concern for island states and for coastal states as well. If we go back, we do a little throwback on what happened in December 2004 with the tsunami of the 2004. Our islands were touched. But at that time, how much did we know? How prepared were we? These are the questions that we keep reflecting on. And here I've just borrowed a few little photos to give an indication of what the situation was in the Seychelles. Next slide, please. A throwback on 2004. Yeah, before that, what was really happening, the tendency was that we were aware of the global warming and the sea level rise, and this is where the attention were being put. And most of the countries, this is where the islands we were thinking about. Tsunami hazard was not really that, well, it wasn't really into the making of the islands, because for two reasons. Well, one was that most of the thinking was that the tsunami will happen once, maybe in every 50 years, the 2% possibility. And there was also the thinking that it will be there will be very limited chances that the waves will reach our shores. And also being far, happening within the Sumatra area, it was also believed that the time between when the activity of the tectonical activity starts and the time it will reach the shore, we will have enough time to prepare the population and to put in place or trigger the evacuation plan. That was the thinking at that time. And but learning from what really happened, we came to realize that we need to react, especially the island states and especially the coastal countries. We need to take a tsunami into consideration in our plans. Next slide, please. Why should we be concerned? Now, as we are, with the global warming and the climate change and the risk, we believe that the risks are increasing. And we have seen as well that recently a lot of coastal and island states, there have been some degradation of the coastal areas. We have to be concerned because the way we will be designing our economic development plans and our land use plan is very important. We have to take into account as well the cost for reconstruction. If we want to rebuild back, and especially if we want to build back better, we have to think about the implications and how do we look at our infrastructures. And we have a growing population. And when we look at the island states and most of the coastal countries, we have a large population of people living within the coastal area. And we also have a lot of recreational and economic activities around the coastal. So we need to be concerned about the risk of tsunami, the risk of sea level rise. So these are very important. And one aspect as well is the health. We have to look at the quality of life, because access to water, where are our water pipes going through? It's the infrastructures they are on the coastal areas. Sanitation, we have to think of what are the consequences. And we have also to think about the pollution that will be being driven into from the waves coming into inland and then going back into the sea. What are the impacts? We have to think about the mental health of our people, because when these things, they happen once in a while, or it can be shocking, and people will want to know exactly what is happening and what to do thereafter. And there is also the aspect of ecological loss. We tend not to give much importance to it, but it is very important, especially for our countries that depend on the ecology, on the nature base, on the nature capital for economic development. Next slide, please. And here, when we look at the impact, and if we go back to the 2004, what did we see? The impact was on the coastal, the marine and coastal environment. And the corals, they did suffer as well from the tsunami, because there were quite a bit of rubbing over the corals, or they were being turned over, and the sediments being brought into the sea. And this is very important to take the factors that we need to consider when we are talking about tsunami and disasters that will have an impact on our coastal and marine resources. The infrastructures, if we look at our countries, most of the infrastructures are found along the coastal area. We have hospitals, we have schools, we have all the telecommunication cables, electricity cables, sewage, and this is where it is the link between the sewage system and the sanitation is of importance. We look at the economic activities and the livelihood, tourism, fisheries, agriculture. We have our agricultural activities along the coastal plateau in some of the countries. So it is also important to take that into consideration. And when the losses will happen, these sectors will be impacting. So it's very important for us to think of how do we think of development around this sector. Next slide, please. When we look at the situation right now, where are we in this region in terms of preparedness and response? I think we have moved, the island states have moved very fast in their activities. From 2015 to now, there has been an increase in awareness. There has been an increase and improvement in institutional and legal frameworks for DRR. And we have seen that people are better prepared. And this we can see through the media coverage. For instance, there has been a lot of media coverage. Journalists has been trained in that area to better understand what is going on. There has been a lot of awareness in the schools, and this is through the PIWA and IOC. We did have an eco school program where we also had the opportunity to work with the schools. We've developed modules for the schools to understand how to integrate disaster, tsunami, and everything into the activities of the schools. we also have seen that a lot of countries have made good progress in having their national policies, either be it climate change policies or disaster risk policies and strategies in place. And we have seen as well that there's been quite a bit of improvement in technology and information flow towards the countries. And we've seen that also with the various Met services, there has been a bit of more technology being applied, given to them, and training has been given to them. The oceanographic institutions as well, they have been given quite a bit of a push into understanding Earth observation technology and remote sensing, things that would be required in terms of technology for watch. We have seen as well that there are at national level the alert system being in place with the proper protocols, but there is still some work to be done to cover the whole remote areas of some of the countries. Simulation exercises is being conducted. We've heard from IOC of UNESCO that some of the training also has been given, and the exercises, the drill has been done. Evacuation plans have been prepared by most countries. And we have seen as well, there's quite a bit of responses from the humanitarian aspect, where civil society, and we've heard from PIWA, civil society are working with government in that area. Next slide, please. And I think where we stand right now, there has been a lot of good progress, but we still have a few work to do, or more work to do, because the situation, the dynamic is changing, and there's quite a bit of work being done. And when we look at climate change being one of the challenges in this region, so it is very important that we continue doing paying attention to what is happening in the ocean as well. So we need to probably work a little bit more on the monitoring of our shorelines and inundated prone areas. We have probably need to look at strengthening coastal resilience. And we have seen with the 2004 tsunami as well, and in some of the literatures, that when we do have our strong base in terms of the natural barriers, we have less risk of having the land being inundated and having more impact. We need to improve on the early warning system for the region. And I'm happy here to say that we will be working through a program with the European Union very, very soon, with together with UNDRR and the PIWA, to try and bring that into perspective and see how as a region we can do things better. We have to continue working with the schools and the communities to raise the level of preparedness, because the situation changes in the countries, development patterns change in the countries. So we need to continuously do that. Some countries that have been able to develop their evacuation plans, we need to be, I think it is important that these plans are made available to business communities, especially the tourism industries, hotels that are along the coastal plain in most of our countries. This is very important that they know what is in the plan and how we can go for a quick response. Probably as well, what will be interesting to see is some of the survey, bathymetric survey and mapping of the shore floors. And that will also bring in some more data into calculating the height and the prediction for the waves and storm surge. Through the Met services as well, we can continue looking into projection of climate projection and looking at modeling for climate. So improving the capacity of Met services is also a way of contributing towards the reduction of risk. And of course, we have to look at our human capacity. We have seen that in some of the countries, the human capacity is not that available in some of the sciences that would be required. So it is very important that we look at that. And also we encourage our legislatives to ensure that governments are given the means to implement the national plans. It's having the national plan, yes, but without the means to work, it will be very difficult for countries to be able to implement their national plans. Next slide, please. And I think this is it. I would like to thank you all and follow us on the various media that we have here. Thank you.
Many thanks, Mrs. Boni, for this very comprehensive and detailed overview of how the region has made progress on tsunami preparedness from different aspects. I would like to invite our next panelist, Ranoelia Ribao Citraca, works at the National Office for Risk and Disaster Management in Madagascar. Mr. Ranoelia Ribao will share their experience, including the development of local standard operating procedures in collaboration with different stakeholders at the national and the subnational level. Mr. Ranoelia Ribao, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Diana. First of all, I would like to thank for all the organization from UNDRR, especially for this webinar for the celebration of WTAD this year. So I'm going to discuss about Madagascar tsunami preparedness and mitigation. Next slide, please. The presentation will mainly focus on tsunami threat and tsunami preparedness and mitigation activities. So I will give you some examples of activities that has been undertaken and is going to be undertaken as well for the next couple of years. As introduction, I would like to first of all remind all of us about the two of the global targets, such as the global target E, with the substantially increase the number of countries with national and local disaster risk reduction strategies by 2020, and the global target F, the substantially enhance international cooperation to developing countries through adequate and sustainable support to complement their national actions for implementation of this framework by 2030. This is for the global framework, but in the national framework, we do have our national constitution. And also we have the law number 2015-031, mainly related and relative to the national policy for risk and disaster management. Also, we do have the national strategy for risk and disaster management. And I would like to highlight that in this national strategy for risk and disaster management, we take the advantage of the multi-risks and the multi-hazard approach, including tsunami. And we also have the opportunity to take advantage of the multi-sectoral approach. Just to let you know that the implementation, the final phase of the validation of the implementation plan of the national strategy of risk and disaster management is now ongoing. Next slide, please. The main stakeholders of tsunami in Madagascar are, as mentioned here, for the regional partners, we We have the UNDRR Regional Office for Africa. And also we work closely with the UNESCO IOC from Jakarta in Indonesia. And especially we do work with Indian Ocean Tsunami Information Center, also based in Jakarta in Indonesia. The partners at the national levels as well. We have for sure the National Disaster Management Office, the BNGRC. Also, the Institute and the Observatory of Geophysics of Antananarivo, the IOGA. This is the National Tsunami Warning Center of Madagascar. It is based in the University of Antananarivo at the Laboratory of Seismology. We also have the close relationship with the Malagasy Youth for Sustainable Development, the MISD, which is represented here by Sanji and Miriam. Also, we also have a partnership with Africa Youth Advisory Board on disaster risk reduction as well. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, the second point that I would like to share is about the tsunami threat in Madagascar. We mainly address to distance tsunami. So as you can see through this table, we have three main sources, three earthquake sources, which are the Andaman Island. It is close to India and Indonesia. Also, we have the subduction zone of the western part of Sumatra Island in Indonesia. We also have the Makran subduction zone. It is in the south of Pakistan, as it is mentioned by Mr. Odo. And we can see from this table that when the earthquake magnitude is up to 8 for the case of the two first sources, we can have a kind of impact of tsunami in the eastern part of Madagascar. And for the case of the tsunami of the earthquake coming from Makran subduction zone, if the earthquake magnitude is up to 7.5, we have to be careful because of tsunami. I mean, tsunami might come in that case. So in the case of first wave arrival, we have 7 hours for both of the two first sources. So 7 hours from the earthquake occurrence time, and for the last one we have 7 hours from earthquake occurrence time. So the time of arrival is at the time of arrival of the first waves is 7 for the first case and 5 for the second case. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of tsunami preparedness and mitigation activities, we are thinking of doing a big activity with the UNESCO IOC and IOTIC from Indonesia and IOGA as well, the National Tsunami Warning Center of Madagascar. So this is the tsunami ready. It is a kind of there are some tsunami ready indicators. The number is 12 that has to be satisfied to be recognized by UNESCO as tsunami ready. I can explain later on, but I just enumerate that we have we have think of having tsunami ready in the frame of one Fuktani or village level in the east of Tuamasin. When the team of UNDRR came in Madagascar in February 2020, we do some activities with them, and part of these activities we have thought about taking into account of one of these Fuktani to be one of the tsunami ready area. The other activity is about the training. We are planning to have a national and sub-national tsunami training on tsunami evacuation maps, plans, and procedures, and SOPs as well. The outputs of the training are mainly tsunami hazard mapping based on tsunami modeling. I will discuss later on about this tsunami modeling. The one of the output as well is the estimation of the number of people living in the tsunami hazard zone. Also, tsunami inundation, evacuation maps, plans, and procedures. Related also to the education program, we think of having public display of tsunami information. We are planning to have the available resource inventory, such as economical, social, human resources. We also have tsunami warning chain and would like to improve this tsunami warning chain for the next training. We do have also as outputs the timeline driven information flow SOP. I will explain later on. And the last one, we do participate to the IOWAVE. We have just participated at the IOWAVE 20 on October last month. Who are the targets? The targets are the national stakeholders, such as the ministries, the UN agencies, the ministries, the UN agencies, the NGOs, and the private sector, the civil society. Also, local authorities, local disaster risk management committees, the disaster risk management communication network. I just want to highlight that the technical preparation of these activities is ongoing with the National Disaster Management Office of Madagascar and the National Tsunami Warning Center of Madagascar. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Hello, can you hear me? Diana, are you there?
Which slide are you looking for?
Oh.
Can you hear us? Citraca. It seems that we have a problem of connection with Citraca. Citraca? Okay. Okay, I see you there again. Can you hear us, Citraca? You're muted. You are muted.
No, it's perfect. No, I think.
Now we can hear it.
That's fine. Also, this is one of the. Hello, can you hear me, Diana?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's fine. So this is the one of the example of the first activity that I've just shared. it is the tsunami modeling results. So you can see from this this scheme that we have the sources from Andaman, and this example is one of the biggest tsunami in the Indian Ocean, the one on 26th of December 2004 with the magnitude of 9.3. You can see that from the scenario that we take from here, it's in Andaman. In the middle, the photo in the middle show the propagation of the wave starting from Andaman and going, passing through Sri Lanka and India, going to the eastern part of Africa as well. So we are all part of this the wave. So that the data that have been used are the bathymetry and the topography data. The software that we also use to model this tsunami wave is the COMET. In the right, we have you can see you have the city of Manakara with the maximum amplitude and the maximum inundation distance as well. Next, please. This is the one of the tsunami evacuation map that we got from the tsunami modeling. Yeah.
Titraka, sorry.
I am almost at the end of.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'm almost at the end. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Next, please. Another example. This is the Madagascar tsunami warning chain. So we got information from the TSPs, the India, Australia, and Indonesia. They give the information to the NTWC and also the NTWC sent the information about the tsunami and the earthquake to the National Disaster Management Office, and then we sent the information till the public through the disaster risk management committees. And we also send the information of evacuation call to the media and have to reach the public at that case. Yeah, next, please. Also, we have this is a kind of example of the timeline-driven information flow SOP. I would like just to highlight that in that table, we have to have the information of the event, when is the time of the earthquake, and what are the activity that has to be done and developed, who is the responsible, how to notify, and then who are the targets. Yeah, next, please. We can skip this one, please. I would like to go to the conclusion. Yeah, this one. What are the main challenges for Madagascar? So as you may know, the main challenges for Madagascar is to consider tsunami as one of the major hazards in Madagascar. So we just don't know that tsunami is a rare event, but the impacts may be strong. So the second challenge is the fact that we have to instill tsunami risk culture in the population, because they are used to address cyclone and flood. So also one of the challenge in Madagascar is the mainstreaming of tsunami in education program. What are the gaps and needs? The gaps are mainly focused on the financial resources, despite the availability of human resources and skills for tsunami preparedness mitigation activities and in the frame of implementation. Also, we would like to involve potential stakeholders such as ministries, UN agencies, NGOs, private sectors, and civil society. I mean the pentahelix of Madagascar. So this is the last thing that I would like to share. Thank you very much. Once again, sorry for the the amount of time that they took to explain all these things. Yeah, thank you very much.
Many thanks, Petrarca. No worries. We were very interested in all the details of the experience in Madagascar. We have our next panelist. Let me please invite Dr. Hamza Kawelwa, who is the Director of Forecasting Services of Tanzania Meteorological Agency, to share the national experience in tsunami preparedness in Tanzania. Dr. Kawelwa, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon. On behalf of my Director General, Dr. Agnes Kijazi, I will present the tsunami preparedness actions Tanzania experience as follows. Next slide, please. So, sorry, can you go? Yeah, so my discussion will cover first the tsunami disaster risk governance, and then I will touch on the improvement of the monitoring and the forecasting systems, preparedness actions, and then I will finalize by having the conclusion and the recommendations. Next, please. So in governance, Tanzania Meteorological Authority is the designated National Tsunami Warning Center through TMA Act number 2 of 2019. But Tanzania Meteorological Authority is the member of the Tanzania Disaster Management Council, TADMAC, which they coordinated by the Prime Minister's office under the Department of the Disaster Management Department. So you can see that tsunami is one of the hazards coordinated by the TADMAC, that is Tanzania Disaster Management Council, is governed under the structure as you can see from the slides. So here we have the Tanzania Disaster Management Council, where TMA is a member. Then all matters related to the tsunami issues are discussed under this council, and then will be laid the same up to the street or village disaster management committee for action and response. Next, please. So on the improvement of the monitoring and the forecasting system, of course, there's no doubt that we need a good cooperation with the regional tsunami service providers. We know we have India, Australia, and Indonesia. So that we need to have the systematic and real-time data and information sharing 24/7. So you can see that we have dedicated communication between the regional tsunami providers and the TMA, which is the National Tsunami Warning Center, which means we need to access the modern technology that will provide the practical solutions for the improved data exchange. Next, please. So why we need to improve the monitoring systems? Recently, the occurrence of earthquakes in the region has increased. I can give one example here in Tanzania coast near Dar es Salaam. There was an earthquake on 12 August 2020, where was an event of earthquakes of 5.9 magnitude. And that one a bit was very embarrassing to the citizen over this area. And it was just only 5.9 magnitude, and the depth was 10 kilometers. So you can see that we need to have this system, the improved monitoring system, because we know that we have a distant tsunami here in Tanzania, but with this occurrence, one day we may face such a hazard of tsunami, a local tsunami. So we need to be very careful with this. But good enough that earthquakes did not trigger any tsunami waves. So here the message is that we need to have the closer watch in the future occurrences of the earthquakes. Next, please. So in terms of preparedness actions, of course, as I have already mentioned, we need a systematic and real-time data and information sharing with the regional tsunami service providers. And this one is in a good condition. So you can see that TMA has a close and operational link with the regional tsunami service providers with regard to the tsunami monitoring and warning along the Indian Ocean. So we have the information exchange between the regional centers, service providers, and the National Tsunami Warning Center. So you may see that the information sharing is also critical among institutions involved in the disaster and the risk reduction at the national level. As we have seen that the Disaster Management Department is coordinating all hazards in the country. So tsunami also is one of the hazards, whereby we have a better improved of the national warning chain from the regional, national to local levels, which means from the upstream to the downstream. Next, please. We would also like to share the experience in participating in the regional tsunami communication test. We've been, for a number of years now, we've been participating in the tsunami communication test through, 3 times a year. And this one has been very useful because we have been always testing our means of communication with the regional centers and also internally. Also, we've been participating in the IOF exercises, at least every 2 years. We've been make sure that we are ready to test our standard operating procedures for all institutions involved in the tsunami emergencies. Of course, in Tanzania, we are coordinated by the Disaster Management Department, which is under the Prime Minister's office. And this one was the training in the IOWave 18 in August in 2018, whereby a beach community unit were involved in the training, and also the fisheries and the beach vendors also involved. And the awareness training materials and tools were prepared and disseminated to the community. Next, please. So you can see here the responders also receiving calls of order after the IOF 18 exercise from the director of the Disaster Management Department in Tanzania. This was the part of the IOF 18. Next, please. So in the last IOF exercise, IOF 20, we managed to use the product of the multi-hazard early warning system, whereby we have started in 2017 to issue this type of product. So we used this also for the IOF 20. As you can see here, we have, it's very easy to know the type of the warning. And you can see here that type of hazard expected, the level, everything is well explained here. And here you have the scale which indicates whether it is advisory, warning, or major warnings. Next, please. It's true that we have lesson learned from the IOWave 18 and 20. One is the communication between the National Warning Center, that is the Tanzania Meteorological Authority, and the department and the team was very good among all involved institutions. The rescuers team, also the communication was good. However, we could not recover all the victims during the exercise. Also, the improved understanding on the tsunami service providers products and tsunami modeling. Of course, we have seen some products here from the comment. A number of staff were also involved in the training, so we think that it's a good lesson learned. Also, there was a good and coordinated mobilization of resources for emergency response, because the warning center, the TMA, the disaster management department, Red Cross, and the other agencies were also involved in this exercise. However, we need to know better what to do in case of tsunami emergency, specifically for the local tsunami. Next, please. So in conclusion, in the recommendation, I would like to mention that since 2013, TMA has been implementing the use of Common Alert Protocol in disseminating weather-related warnings, including tsunami. So we have been using the CAP, Common Alert Protocol, to disseminate the tsunami warnings and advisories. The other thing is the warning communications is also an essential link between the monitoring and the response capability. The other thing is the early warning needed to contain clear, actionable message that reach the population at risk, then understand them and enable them to act to reduce the impact of the disaster. Of course, as I have mentioned that now the trend of occurrence of earthquakes in the region is increasing, so we need to strengthen the tsunami warning systems, including the observations, network monitoring, and also the means of communication with the population at risk. Next, please. So I wish you the World Tsunami Awareness Day. I hope that all of us, we are ready for the next wave. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cabello, for this presentation. We have another member state that will share with us their experiences in tsunami preparedness. I am glad to invite Mrs. Vicky Berlouy from the Department of Risk and Disaster Management in Seychelles. Mr. Berlouy, the floor is yours. You are muted, Mrs. Berlouy, you are muted.
Good afternoon. I shared a presentation. I don't know if you got it, but my presentation is going to be brief. It's mainly about the points that were made to discuss about the importance of reducing tsunami risk through further developing accurate and timely tsunami warnings, and then about the strengthening of risk governance. So firstly, in terms of reducing risk through developing accurate and timely tsunami warnings, the key to any effective warning system is to ensure that the information is given in a timely manner and the communication is done well so that the public is well informed and the responders are informed as well, and to have a credible information, a credible source for information. So what we have seen for the past years, based on our experience and from the recent IOWave exercise that we have conducted, is that we do have a system in place for for first warning for tsunami warnings, but there is need for improvements on the system that is already in place, because usually we use existing existing systems such as the media and social media platform. But we have seen that there are many ways that we could improve the existing system. So currently for communication, we use SMS, email, media, social media, Facebook and WhatsApp. But we've seen certain gaps that there is the need to have more tailored information for different kind of age groups, because usually in Seychelles, it's the older generation that tend to listen to news or radio and television like that. And the younger generation, they like other platforms such as social media and apps. So for the IOF 2020 exercise, what we did is we had an agreement with the Social Broadcasting Corporation, because they have a radio app that they have been using for some time now. It has been launched this year. And with that, we decided to use, they have channel on these radio apps, and we decided like to use one of these channels to appeal to a younger generation through this app, so we can keep them updated about the exercise and the warning system and all this information. And we see that this worked very well. And then the department itself, also with the Department of Seychelles Meteorological Agency, there is a plan for an app on its own. So this app will definitely reach the younger generation. They will be able to get information about any multi-hazard at a better timely manner, and the information will be tailored specifically for them. We will still be using the older system, but this is something that we would like to venture into. And then looking at education and awareness, the importance of a tsunami warning system that will work is a system that people will understand. What we have seen is, even though in the past we have conducted certain school outreach program, but there's still certain lack of commitment when it comes to the stakeholders, especially at certain governmental level. We see that the private sectors is more encouraged to participate or into any exercise that we are given, be it drill or have their programs in place, especially the businesses. But when it comes to government sectors, maybe they have other priorities instead of disaster risk reduction, despite efforts to mainstream disaster risk reduction into all sectors. And we see that it's also about the commitment of individual. Like the public do not necessarily appeal if you do a talk like in the community or the district, you will get certain participation, but not all the participation. So these are the gaps that we are trying to work through. So for this, even last year, we conducted a questionnaire, a public questionnaire. It was not specifically about tsunami. It was an all hazard questionnaire that we gave to the public during an exhibition to see how well versed they are when it comes to early warning system. And from this questionnaire, the result was that people, they are very familiar with the different type of hazards that they can affect them in Seychelles, but they're not necessarily familiar with the actual system that is in place. Some of them may know the color codes and all that. So what we are trying to do now is to have certain outreach program that may sort of training of the trainers. This is not something that we have started, but it's something that we would like to implement. Like if we go to the communities and train the people in the communities, then maybe they can train their local communities in the way that they might respond. Or maybe we can, through certain programs, we can target specific groups, because different age groups, they will have their different ways of responding. Maybe like the tourism sectors, they will have their way of responding. The fisheries sectors, even the school will have their way of responding. Usually we get good response from children at a very young age, but when they become like in the teenagers or the young adults, this is another kind of perspective. So this is something that we have to work with, because in Seychelles we have seen also, it's it's easy for people to react when the event is happening. Everybody is always alert, everybody is ready to give a hand to, but when it comes to preparedness, you don't get that as much as commitment as you would like to do the drills or exercise or community participation. But when there's an actual emergency, that's when everybody will get involved. So for that, we see the weakness that there is the need for strengthening disaster risk governments to avoid creating new risks. Like I said, the challenges remains commitment at other parties, because there is always an enthusiasm at the start, but the programs may not be implemented throughout. There's several factors to this, maybe like the common pattern in Seychelles, especially in the government sectors, we see that there is a high turnover. So sometimes to train a lot of people, especially within the disaster risk reduction, in which case we don't have a lot of people that is training disaster risk reduction, but the minute to train a lot of us, a lot of people, even in the different other sectors, the government sectors, and then they change jobs. So there is a loss of knowledge there, because people who know about the different trainings, who attend the different training, then they have a changing career. Maybe they go to private, which they are not using this knowledge and information, and then you have new staff to train. So there's this certain gap. And then, like I said, commitment of the different sectors to implement the programs, because we are very small. So the other departments, for example, infrastructure department, the climate change department, they will have their other priorities, which will surpass the disaster risk reduction priorities, or to mainstream disaster risk reduction. And sometimes it's the funding. Even if they want to implement certain risk reduction activities, certain preparedness activities, sometimes funding becomes an issue, especially when it comes to preparedness. So our way forward, how to resolve these issues is, for example, our department has already, our strategic plan already centers around implementing the 4 priority of action of the Sendai framework. So most of all of our action plans starting last year and this year and the years to come is based on enhancing and making sure that these 4 priority of action are being conducted, are being done, especially about the mainstreaming of disaster risk reduction throughout the different sectors. And then one thing that we have done recently is we have renewed our National Integrated Disaster Management Plan. This was just approved by Cabinet. It's a review of the plan that existed before. So this is a multi-hazard approach plan. So with this plan, it gives a clear mandate of all the stakeholders about what they should be doing, and it gives an overview of the national coordinating system. So after formalization of this plan, the next step is to go to all the stakeholders, all the different sectors, to sit with them and review their SOP. And this plan also will serve as guideline to them when they are reviewing their own policies and plans that exist. Because the trend here in Seychelles that we have discovered is that the impact when it comes to any disaster, be it tsunami, be it another weather-related disasters, such as we have common like flash floods or storm surges, most of the incident is related to man-made induced factors, such as the way we develop, because most of our development is located along the coast, otherwise up in the mountains. So we have this issue about the way that people do the earth cutting, or the way they develop, that causes the flooding in the low-lying areas. That's why it causes flash flooding a lot. That's why it's caused a lot of impact due to flash flooding. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to influence these sectors to implement the component of disaster risk reduction in their policies, in their plans, so that when they are developing, it will be much more sustainable, and it will reduce the impact of the risk of the hazards, of the impacts of the hazard when it manifested. And another issue that we can say, Seychelles is very small, so we do not have a lot of areas to develop. So there's this common trend in the past that you can see, like the fuel storage is located next to an office building, or even that the ice plants are located next to our residential areas, even the factory is located in town, which is close to a fishery sector, which is close to office building and all that. So you have this sort of everything is close together, which you have different type of activities ongoing, which does not necessarily is not necessarily safe to be. So with the new National Integrated Disaster Management Plan is what we're trying to implement, so that when we continue to develop, maybe we develop less risky areas. So that is one we're trying to do. And then another way forward, like I said before, is the training of trainers program, because since we have this loss of high turnover, we would like that people that attend these trainings, they continue to give training to others, so that the program may continue even if the people has left the programs that they were doing. And then something that we would like to implement as well is a cost analysis studies. What we have seen that usually in Seychelles, and many other countries as well, it's common that when an event has happened, that's why a lot of funding is given for the recovery. But if we have studies of how much it will cost us before the event actually happens, maybe it will influence more investment into preparedness. It not only the cost analysis studies, but we are talking about research or scenario planning. Like Seychelles was affected in 2004. Back then we were developed, but not as developed as we are today. Today we have, back then we had certain reclaimed lands. Today we have reclaimed lands which has been developed into residential areas, industrial areas, development areas. So it's important to know how to have scenario planning, to know if there will be another event, either with the same wave amplitude or another wave amplitude, how much impact it will cost us, what will be affected, because we know that our coast, the way it is, it will be affected different ways. Because even if we are a small island, back in 2004, the southwest area was mostly affected compared to the northeastern areas. But the northeastern areas at that time, they did not have any developments on the reclaimed land areas. So we will not know if the event will repeat itself, which will not be the same kind of event, even if with the same wave amplitude, how it will impact our coastal areas. So it's important to have these studies, the scenario planning, the cost analysis studies and research. And as well, it's important for us to update our information management within the different sectors, because maybe some people have certain information, some sectors have certain information, but it's not being correlated or put together, so we can have a better or clear picture. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vicky, for this very comprehensive presentation coming from the community and all the work on trainers until the integrated disaster management plan and the cost analysis, reflection, and the scenario planning. So you cover different perspectives from not only preparedness, but also disaster risk reduction, and in this specific case, tsunami disaster risk reduction. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I will invite now our next panelist, Mrs. Marcia Santini, who works at the Directorate for Space Security and Migration in the Disaster Risk Management Unit at the European Commission Joint Research Center. Her intervention will address the work done by the European Commission Joint Research Center on the use of technology and science for tsunami hazard assessments and risk reduction. Mrs. Santini, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting us as JRC to this important event. I also thank you, UNDRR, for taking this important initiative. We're learning a lot about an area where we've been active, and you will see in this presentation, only in the northern part. I will speak on behalf of a number of colleagues of mine who have been working on the topics for at least 10 years. And what we're going to, next slide, please. What we're going to see is the Joint Research Center activities in the field of this tsunami risk management. Whatever the JRC has done in the last 10 years has to be seen as an effort to contribute to the global coordination of the intergovernmental efforts of the member states. As we know, the mandate for this is to UNESCO, and the Oceanographic Commission is coordinating regional systems that you can see highlighted in this world map. And Africa is interested by two of them. As you see, Northern Africa and western part of the northern coast of Africa is under the regional system of the Northeastern Atlantic, Mediterranean, and Connected Seas, while Eastern Africa is under the Indian Ocean coordination group. So we contributed to these two regions as JRC as well. Next, please. Our goals is to have for different kind of coastal floodings. So we're talking about tsunamis, storm surge, as well as any other kind of coastal flooding. The JRC tried to have an overview of an ordered collection of all the data available and to display them in a useful way for the users, which are the policymakers and decision makers in the case of emergencies. The other objective was to create a catalog of analysis of these past events, as well as to have the possibility to simulate new events and see what to expect in the future. And finally, the idea was to have all the data available to be able to do some sea level forecasting and issue alerts in advance with respect to the impact of the event. Next. Regarding data, all the data that we manage and we collect and manage are available through this website that you see highlighted in yellow in this slide. So what we have three different sections of this website. One is dedicated to the visualization and management of the data from the network that was designed and set up by the European Commission, and we will talk about it in a minute. And also the networks from the so-called partner organization who accepted through bilateral agreements to share their data with us. Another part of the platform that is accessible to the users is the sea level database, and this collects data from all the World Wide Web. Whatever public data is available, there is an automatic scrapping which collects and orders that in a global database. And finally, there is a section that is called TAT, Tsunami Analysis Tool, and is a platform where the users can look at the calculation for a given event, tsunami, earthquake triggered tsunami, can look at the modeling and what is the expected impact. Next. Regarding the alerts, the website of reference is this one, is GDAX, the Global Disaster Alert and Coordination System. Is a platform that probably you already know, but is an initiative between the European Commission and the United Nations. And in this platform, the users can subscribe and can receive alerts whenever natural events occur, therefore including tsunamis, storm surge, and floodings. And the level of alert, which might be green, yellow, or red, is depending on the estimated amount of humanitarian aid that might be needed when the event is occurring in the given area. Next. Here you see a map of the JRC designed tsunami network, sea level measurement network, sorry. As you see, we have stations in two areas, mainly in the Mediterranean area and in the Indonesian area. This network is the sum of the IDSL, the inexpensive device for sea level measurements devices that has been designed in JRC, and we have 35 stations in the Mediterranean and 7 stations in the Indonesian area, plus all the data coming from the partner organization who accepted to share this data with us. Next. This is the other, the global database, as I mentioned briefly already. So we are scraping in an automatic way all the data that are available on the web, and we are cataloging them into the sea-level database and provide services to the users through the website. Next. I want only now spend the last words about the innovations that are made in JRC, meaning that at the JRC there is a laboratory, the European Crisis Management Laboratory, where not only monitoring is taken care of, but is also sensors and new devices are designed. And that is always with the aim of filling the gaps, the knowledge gaps in the early warning chain for tsunami in this case. So on the top left picture, you see a picture of one IDSL, the inexpensive device for sea level monitoring, and the network of these devices is in the Mediterranean and Indonesia right now. The 7 sensors that are in Indonesia will be soon become much more, because Indonesia decided to roll out these devices, acquiring 100 new devices within the next future. On the top right, you see a picture of the GPS floating buoy. Now, let me give you some context here. In the Mediterranean especially, the time for alerting is very, very short because of the close nature of the basin, and also because of the proximity of the faults that can generate tsunami, the proximity of these faults to the coast. So this means that the time for alerting goes from 5 minutes, and that was the case in the tsunami of 1908 in Messina, to maximum 1.5, 2 hours. So this is the timing we're talking about. And in the Mediterranean, we are lacking the possibility of having data collected far from the coast, because there are no deep sea level measurements stations in the Mediterranean. All the sea level measurement stations are located on the coastline. So what JRC is trying to do with this GPS floating buoy is a research project conducted together with the Environmental Agency of Italy. And we instrumented this floating buoy with advanced technology. And the idea is to use the differential GPS measurements so that the floating buoy can be located up to 15 kilometers from the coast and measure the variation of the sea level at that distance, thus, gaining some time for alerting the population along the coast. Now the buoy is under test in the La Spezia Gulf, northern of Italy, but once we will have enough data and the technology will show robust results, we will move it down south to place the buoy in the center of the Mediterranean and serve the entire Mediterranean basin and member states facing it. Bottom left, sorry, we have the so-called tsunami alert device. It's a digital panel, but is an intelligent digital panel, meaning that it has a software inside which is able to receive the information from the sea level sensors and elaborate the data incoming. And whenever these data are higher than given thresholds, it triggers an alert. So you will have a digital message visualized. You will have the siren producing a sound and a rotating light. And finally, on the bottom right, you have a picture of the RIO, Remote Interoperability Platform. We can talk about it with the next slide. So we can, yes. The idea, sorry for the visualization, it seems there is something wrong there, but the idea is that the JRC has been working on these innovations for 10 years. And at one point, there was the need to connect them all. So JSC worked on the design of this software, which is called Rio Unit. And this software is actually capable to connect, to receive data from all the different devices that you see in these pictures, but even much more than that, whatever kind of device, as long as the data is produced and provided in CAP format, the Common Alerting Protocol format. So if the data comes from whatever device into that format within the software, then the software can connect, read, and compare according to given thresholds. So you see on the top left, the interface that is that was programmed by our programmers in order to administer and manage all these networks from remote. And on the bottom left, you see one of my colleagues testing this software and the capability of this software to manage these devices also from remote. And this, I think, this is one of the most important things, because what we have seen is that there is a lot of information, but very often what is missing is the link among the different data and information. So this is what could provide a solution to connect regional, national, and local systems in a timely and effective way. Next slide. We jumped one. There should be one before yes, this one. What you have seen until now is all under field testing right now, meaning that we started field testing all these devices and the interconnection and interoperability among them since 2018, thanks to the financial support of the Directorate General for Civil Protection and Humanitarian Aid of the European Commission. So in 2018 and 19, all those devices were installed in 2 countries, Greece, Bodrum specifically, and Greece, in Greece in Kos, and in Turkey in Bodrum. And we tested them during a field exercise, which involved the local community. Right now, we are doing a second implementation in Malta and Indonesia. And similarly, the idea is to involve, as it was done already in Bodrum and Kos, all the national authorities from the local level to the provincial, regional, and national one, because this is what we believe is needed to really be able to go from the seismic signal to the citizen on the shore. This is, we need to build not only the technical and the procedural link among these different administrative levels, but also the interinstitutional linkage among them. And this is my last slide. What I want to say is that Koser and Bodrum are both very close to the place where last Friday, 30th of October, the tsunami occurred after the earthquake that struck Turkey and Greece. And 2 of the devices that we installed during this project in Kos measured the tsunami wave. And they were the first devices to measure the passage of these tsunami waves, and the data were immediately available to the national and regional warning centers, who were then capable to forecast the arrival time of the tsunami wave on the coast. And that's all from my side, and I'm available for any question that the participants may have.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Santini, and happy to hear that you had the opportunity to calibrate and to see the results in the field of the project. I mean, that was a good thing for science, and good thing that the tsunami was not destructive. So.
Unfortunately, there were many victims for the earthquake, but the assessments are still ongoing in the field. There is an international assessment ongoing by Greek and national scientific community, and we are also backing them up from JSC here, because we are not allowed to travel during this COVID-19 situation. But it seems that there were no victims due to the tsunami until.
So that's very important, because normally when the tsunami is destructive, it adapts to the destruction of the earthquake. So that's very important to take care of. thank you very much for your intervention. We have very interesting questions in the chat. Unfortunately, not a lot of time, but one of the questions is related to what Mrs. Santini mentioned in her last slide, in the last mile actions. So the question is addressed to Dr. Kabelwa from Tanzania. So the participant would like to know what is being done in Tanzania in addition to the work on forecasting and prediction and receiving the warnings, mainly in the last mile. So if you could kindly focus on disaster maps preparation and the work in the field and in the community. I don't know if Dr. Kabelwa is still with us.
Yes, I'm still here.
So if I got the question correctly, if I understood correctly, what we have done in COS and Bodrum was to involve the national scientific communities of both countries, and together with them, we managed to assess the tsunami risk, so to identify all the possible tsunamigenic sources in terms of seismic faults, to identify the maximum probable scenario, and then to determine the expected inundation aids along the coast. Based on that, the evacuation routes for the population were also identified, in that case involving of course, the civil protection authorities and the emergency management authorities. And then finally, we tested the appropriateness of these evacuation routes and procedures during the final exercise. This is what we have done in Turkey and in Greece, in the 2 villages test sites chosen. And we're going to do the same in Malta, and in Indonesia, Pangandaran is the test site chosen in that case.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Mr. Kabelwa, up to you for the question on the same kind of activities in Tanzania.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. In forecasting, actually what we do after getting the information from the regional tsunami service providers on the generation of the tsunami, we use the COMET tool to do further simulations where we have the more detailed information about the bathymetric data on our coast under the ocean. So we are using the information to simulate and to perfect the magnitude of the tsunami wave and the arrival times at different destinations in the coast. So those information are further packaged for users, for different users, including the disaster management, where all the stakeholders are further related the information for further action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kabelwa, for that answer. I'm afraid we don't have much time for questions, but I think the presentations of the panelists have been very comprehensive and have covered several topics. So many thanks to all of you for your participation. And I would like to conclude this webinar by inviting Mr. Amjad Abashar to give his closing remarks. Mr. Abashar, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Diana. I don't have anything to add. Actually, I will not be able to do justice to the rich presentations that were provided. I think we will share the various presentations that were made, and also to really congratulate all the speakers for all the success and the impressive progress that's been made, both at the country level in the various countries, Seychelles, Madagascar, Tanzania, and also to thank also the colleagues from the regional organizations from the Indian Ocean Commission, and the other colleagues from, of course, the JRC, the Joint Research Center. A couple of the countries have already developed national disaster risk reduction strategies, keeping in mind the importance of addressing the multi-hazard nature of disasters. So that's quite impressive. And I'm also thanking colleagues for, there was a particular good focus on the issue of alerts and very sophisticated ways of communicating these alerts. And there was also an important focus that I saw on the issue of targeting youth through various methods, through either education or curricula or using the apps and things of that sort. So I thought it's very innovative and quite impressive, considering that we do look at Africa as rarely affected by tsunamis, but at the end of the day, it is just one that will cause immense damage and losses in lives and properties, and coastal areas in particular being affected. So I reiterate my thanks to all the colleagues and to UNESCO, of course, Mr. Miko Dido, who was collaborating with us on this, and the excellent work that UNESCO is doing in this particular area, including by establishing all these scientific stations around Africa and the progress that they've made since 2005 until today. So thank you to you, Diana, and to the UNDRR team for behind you for doing this excellent job. And we look forward to learning more. And I think many of the panelists and the colleagues will be happy to answer questions, I guess, offline that's needed. And hopefully we've accomplished what we wanted to do, is to raise awareness of the importance of tsunami on the World Tsunami Awareness Day, and the importance of addressing the multi-hazard nature of risk. Thank you very much to you all, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abashar, for these words, and to all for having joined us in this webinar. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Cabello.
Yeah. See you.
See you.
Bye, thanks.
Bye, thanks.
Bye, and thank you.
Yeah.
Goodbye, thank you. Bye.